Chapel Roan's back. The subway. Let's talk about it. How y'all doing? Welcome to Let's Talk About It, Music Reviews Season 11. How y'all doing? Welcome to the show. Guys, we got a good episode for you today. Now, last time we talked about Chappell Roan, she had a country song, or I guess it was a country type song. I'm not going to say it was like a country song. But this is like, her coming back to her roots, coming back for that TikTok pop format. And I don't say that to, diss on her, because honestly, guys, Chappell Roan's TikTok format, it was like a 4-minute song today. And it had a bridge, it had an ending hook, it had like a whole, vocal run at the end. So, honestly, guys, Chappell Roan is putting in the work. She's putting in more work than most pop artists today. Let's just be goddamn real. Sometimes you can barely even get a 2-minute song out of these new pop singers. It's fucking crazy. But Chappell Roan's pouring her goddamn heart out, and it's what you do when you're on a subway, when you're crying, when you have autistic green hair. I would be crying too, I would be, singing my heart out on the subway too. So, let's get into this song, guys. We got the subway. Let's start off with the instrumental. Now, I will say, guys, this is one of these, situations, or not a situation, I'm going to say situation, be dramatic. I listened to her last song, and I think, instrumental-wise, the way that whole song was kind of put together, it felt like the instrumental actually had some life to it. And then I listened to this new song called The Subway, and then we're right back to, that basic-ass folklore-type song. And what do I mean by folklore, guys? Because, I think some people, don't want to give Taylor Swift enough credit, guys. But, you look at the Folklore album, that whole ass sound, and then I look at this song, and I'm like, shit, you might as well run the same instrumentals up. You might as well, hand Chappell Roan, Taylor Swift, you might as well trade these Folklore instrumentals around because they sound exactly the same. Guitar is pretty much, the same, 5-second loop. There is some drums, I guess you could say. Not drums, I guess. It's kind of replacing the drums. It's going to add some backgrounds, explosive kind of piano sounds. Some explosive, bass type sounds. And then you got all these background vocals going goddamn crazy. So it's kind of doing that to replace the drums. Because there's not really drums on this song. Because I'm thinking this song is one of those songs where it's, you really want to hear the vocals. So, I will say this is a simple folk-like instrumental, but I will say it gets the job done. There's a reason why Taylor Swift made a whole album with this type of sound, because it gets the job done, it's not that bad. I do like how it's mixed, though. I think it's mixed a little bit than whatever Folklore tried to do. I think the mixing on here is pretty good. The only thing I will say about the mixing is when we get to the hook, when we get to the singing, when you do these scream vocals, when you start scream singing, when you try to do the jelly roll type singing, when you try to do these vocal runs, you gotta be careful sometimes, because your auto-tune settings can really fuck up these vocal runs, it can really make them sound pretty bad. And, that's maybe why people don't do so many vocal runs in 2025, because, once you start, going over what the auto-tune, can really detect, well, the mixing on the vocals, end up sounding pretty bad, or whatever. Now, thankfully, with this song, you don't get that. I think the singing on here was actually pretty good. And I will get into the first verse now, because there's not really much to talk about with the instrumental. I do like the beginning, I do like the singing. I think the singing is actually pretty good. I do like how, there's two things happening here. There's a filter/vocal effect on the verses, and then there's a whole different effect on the hook. And when I was really listening to the song, did I really enjoy that part? Did I really enjoy that factor? Well, I think, I think it gets the job done, and I think it wants to keep you listening to the song over and over and over again, because I've talked about on this music show for, 11 plus seasons now, I've talked about, you need these vocal switch ups, you need these little switch ups, and honestly, if you can switch it up, let's, entirely mix the verses in a different way, let's entirely mix the hook in a whole different, way, I think that's a pretty unique thing, and I think I do like that from the song The Subway. Now, let's get into the hook. I like the hook. I like the build up to the hook, and then I like that lead. You know, I like the build up to the hook. Let me say that. I like the build up to the hook. The only problem with these like folk type pop hooks is that they have all this build up. They build up to something, and then they end off their song with, you know, saying a phrase, singing off a phrase. You know, saying like the subway at the end, and then they'll get into the next verse. Well, I don't really like that part. I'll be real. I really wish, you know, it could have been something a little bit different. You know, I feel like, you know, if you're just going to end it off saying the subway, I mean, it was a little too basic. I mean, if I'm going to have all this fucking build-up, if I'm going to, you know, be fucking building up this hook to something really grand, something great, and then, you know, when the grand thing happens, it's just saying the subway and that's it. And then it moves on to the verses. Well, I'm not going to really enjoy the hook that much. That's why I enjoyed the second part of the song and the second part of the hook. Because the second part of the hook, she actually takes, you know, that subway concept and actually, you know, drags it out. Actually does some vocal runs, does some vocal switch-ups. So that's a really cool thing, too. I really do like that. And it's honestly quite uncommon. You know, as I've been covering pop music, you know, and all types of music for, you know, now going to be 5+ years soon, I will say this, guys. I really, you know, I've listened to so many pop songs that don't have any vocal runs, that don't have any bridges, that don't even, you know, want to even have a second hook sometimes. Sometimes they don't even want to do that. Sometimes, you know, they don't even want to do a second verse. The fact that we do get a second verse on here, and I will say the second verse is pretty good. You know, I like the vocal switch-ups. I like these little mini switch-ups that happen throughout this whole entire song. And then you actually get that hook. That hook comes in, and that second part with the vocal bridge, with the vocal runs at the end. I think that whole combination, guys, is just absolutely fantastic. And it's honestly a lost art these days with a lot of 2025 and 2024 music, you know. Everybody wants to, you know, sample popular-ass old songs, but, you know, nobody wants to make, you know, a bridge, or nobody wants to make a hook on their own. You know, this is really, you know, taking those things and actually really doing it here. So I really do like the creativity of this song. It's definitely there. You know, I really wish all this, like, creativity of the mixing on the vocals, the, you know, the bridges, you know, the adding more to the song, etc. I really wish that Chapple Roan could actually, you know, get better for an ear for production, because I like all these concepts, I like what she's doing here, but I feel like we're doing it on the most basic ass instrumental in the whole entire fucking world. Guys, I can't tell you, you know, how many times I've listened to songs where artists want to, you know, go completely off the goddamn rails, but the instrumental wants to say the exact same. This whole entire song, there's even a part of the song where the instrumental completely cuts out. Guys, you need to complete the song. You know, the song does not feel complete if the instrumental is not even going to be fucking there throughout the whole entire song, you know? I just feel like that's what this song is missing. This song is missing some live instrumentation. This song is missing some instrumental switch-ups. This song is missing a fucking loop change on the guitar. I mean, it's the same 5-second fucking guitar loop. Can we change that? Can we add something? Can we, you know, I don't know, go from G on the guitar this time? Can we, you know, change it up just a little bit? You know, it just stays the exact same for 4 minutes long. I mean, look, this is running into Drake territory. This is running into Drake using the same beat for fucking 5 minutes. I mean, it just gets boring after a while to listen to. So, that is my only gripe about this song, is that the instrumental needs a lot of goddamn work. The instrumental, why is it so fucking basic? Your last song, the instrumentation was fucking crazy. This song, what are we fucking doing here? I just don't understand sometimes with artists with the instrumental. It just makes no sense. I hope Chapple Roan's ear for production gets a lot better. And that'll come in time. That'll come in time as an artist, you know, keeps evolving, keeps doing their thing. So hopefully we get that. But yeah, guys, overall, this is a pretty decent song. I'm going to easily give it a 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10, guys. What y'all think about it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? I don't know. Let me know. If you're on YouTube, Spotify, Pandora, wherever you get your podcast at, make sure you follow, turn on notifications, guys. If you're on... Oh, by the way, my Pandora people, make sure you go check out the sports podcast show, Let's Talk Sports. The first episode's up. We got done talking about the Lions and the Chargers. I talked about them for like an hour. Go check that out, guys, and I'll see you later. You have a good one. Bye.